So thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of Institution Innovation Council of MET Engineering College, MET Business Incubation Center, MET Group of Colleges, and as a personal behalf of MET Entrepreneurship Cell, EDI, ED Cell, and all clubs of MET group of institutions, on my personal behalf, and as a change making community, we are the design thinking training solutions company, which we have Lighting and Media Works Private Limited. We it's a most privilege for MET group of colleges, MET Business Incubation Center to proudly welcome Shri Vishal Nair as a master trainer of Entrepreneurship Development Innovation Institute, Government of Tamilnadu. Also, he is a professor in Karone University. Thank you, sir. Thank you for joining us for this day, and welcome to this episode of Entrepreneurship Post COVID-19. That's a title that he will be sharing with us all. So, before formally we go for the program, it's our turn to start with Tamil Taiwan. That's a traditional song that we use to start each and every program. Since we are going virtual, I'm just implementing all those on-stage directions into this virtual stage. So here we start with a prayer song today. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. To give a brief outline about Vishal Nair, sir. So normally, as an entrepreneur, maybe I used to travel across this country, but there are only few people who I met. They are very, very generous. Not generous, not very generous. I speak about very, very generous. And one such of personality is Shri Vishal Nair, sir. So I've met him first in an EDI training happened in Kanniyakumari district. From then, he is a constant source of motivation, constant source of support for all those entrepreneurial activities. As this district is doing progressing, or maybe as a nation, we are progressing towards entrepreneurship. Maybe with those all news is coming up from yesterday. It's all about entrepreneurship is one best method that we can go forward for this, for highly benefiting this country. So Vishal Nair sir is one of a gem who could be very much utilized for entrepreneurship training, and also not only as a person, he's a great source of motivation. As a technical person, he's such a great inspiration. So it's our Institution Innovation Council and Entrepreneurship Cell of MET Engineering College is really proud to have Vishal Nair sir with us. So he was a resource person for E Summit, which we have conducted last month, and today he is here, and we're looking forward to most of the programs with Vishal sir. So on behalf of once again on behalf of Institution Innovation Council, on my behalf of my management, on behalf of my director, Dr. P. Sendil Kumar, President of Institution Innovation Council, and on behalf of all the dear participants who have attended, we have close to 60 participants for this webinar. On behalf of everyone, let me kindly invite Shri Vishal Nair, sir. So, a warm welcome.
Thank you, Rahul.
Social stage is all yours.
Thank you. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, sir. You're audible.
I'm clear.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I'll just share my screen.
Yes, sir. You can do. You are the co-host. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So is my screen visible to all of you?
So you're visible. So participants can also just give a chat in this chat box. If the screen is visible.
Sure. Okay.
Yes, sir. Visible, sir.
So it's visible for them. Okay. Good. Thank you. Thank you, Rahul, for that very highly exalted reference and introduction to me. Okay, I'm
coming from bottom.
I'm not such. Yes, we understand that, and thank you so much for inviting me. Okay, I'm also a newbie. I'm not from very long time in this field called entrepreneurship. But for the time I've been very excited about this field of entrepreneurship, and I know this is the only ray of hope for our country to become or to be one among the developed countries in the world tomorrow. Not only economically, but in every mean, in every way, right? And I would like to make one correction, as Rahul had introduced me as also a faculty in Karunya Deemed University. Well, that was true till yesterday. Yesterday was my last day in Karunya Deemed University. I have put my papers there, and I have made my decision to plunge into this world of entrepreneurship full time. I was running my company part time, but now I know that it needs my full time attention. So I've made my decision. So I'm now co-founder of KrossWay Solutions, of which there is actually a branch in Nagarkoil. We also have a small office space in Nagarkoil in Kanniyakumari. And actually my friend runs it from there, and now I'm planning to take it forward full-fledged. Apart from that, of course, I am a master trainer for Government of Tamil Nadu's Entrepreneurship Development Innovation Institute, Tamil Nadu, and all its initiatives of faculty development program and student entrepreneurship development programs. So that's a brief introduction about me. Thank you so much for having me.
Sir, give me a second.
Yes.
Sir, give me a second. Like I will mute everybody.
Sure.
And then I will just unmute you.
Go ahead.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
And also, welcome to the world of entrepreneurship. Then, as a full-time entrepreneur.
Yes. Thank you. So definitely, for most of you to make this switch, I know what goes through you. Uncertainty is the first thing that comes to your mind. Okay, how uncertain is the world that is ahead of you? But let me tell you, I feel personally that if I don't make the switch now, maybe 20 to 30 years down the line, I may regret of the risk I have not taken when I could take. I know the conditions are not good. I know the situations are bad, but still I feel this is a time, and so have made the plunge finally. And well, I believe for sure I'll never regret this decision, because I have set my mindset, and by God's grace, definitely we'll be successful. Yes, so to test, that was about to set the tone to this session, as you can see on my screen. And if some of you have attended my sessions before, I actually asked this: what is VUCA, right? And I have put it on the screen today. The full form of VUCA is nothing but volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity, right? And if we look at the world today that we are living in, it is actually a VUCA world, right? It is a world which is very volatile, very uncertain, complex, and ambiguous, right? Every day we are glued to the television channel to know what's happening in the world, because we are living in an exciting time in one way, but at the same time in a very uncertain times. We don't know what is happening to the economy, the country. It's a very uncertain situation. World has become very complex. The political environment has never been so complex as it is today. World has become very ambiguous. There is no clarity of where each nation is being led to. The leadership of different governments or the superpowers in the world are acting very ambiguously in selfish favors, in selfish interests sometimes, but we can never question them. But all these things are happening in the world, and here we are in this country called India. In fact, a great country called India, and we are expecting to do something with our life, to do some contribution with our life for our country, for our community around, right? And that's the very reason I believe so many of you. I'm so excited to see around 60 of you here at this particular time. I've hardly seen any online meeting having so many participants. So let me plunge into the topic straight away. It is very true. As you can see, the world we are living in, it is so uncertain. You see people all around practicing social distancing. Nobody goes outside without the fear of contracting the virus. Nobody knows where the virus is lurking. Nobody knows complete truth to say. We don't know if the government is hiding some figures, some facts. We do not know till now the entirety about this virus infection in our country, in the world. People are so depressed. We saw some of the biggest migrant crisis happening in our country. So many people, somebody was comparing it to the, what do you say, the problem to the great exodus, the times of Bible. Yeah, so many people, we saw it, especially in the North Indian states. So many people were moving from cities to their own native places because they had lost their jobs, and you saw some of them were walking for 400 kilometers, 500 kilometers, all these things, right? All these things were happening in our country, and we all are aware about it. And what can we do personally? Uh, Hardly we could not do anything personally. Most of us are locked down in our homes. Yeah, most of us are locked down in our homes. So there was hardly anything you and me could do personally. But instead of that, we were only lamenting on it. But we know the economic crisis that the world is facing. Markets are falling all over the world. People are losing their jobs. So many people, so many news we hear, and the news channels do not help. They keep on highlighting about this company fired 500 people, that company fired 15,000 people. This company fired 12, laid down 12,000 people. There is salary cut, and maybe some of you are also facing the crunch because of your management salary cut, or maybe you may be thinking, looking at an uncertain future. Some of you are, I believe, are students, and you are looking at a future where you are thinking, will I get a job? Will I get a good job? All these uncertainties are looming, I know, for all of you. And I believe when you look at solution, everyone in this world are looking at government, right? What is the next what is the next what do you say, uh, that solution that the government will bring, right? Maybe our government will bring, or maybe there is a central government will bring, the state government will bring, and people's mindset is always somehow we need to pass over this time. They just want to fix the problem in present. They do not want to look at the long-term initiatives. But as the world is saying, and it is no brainer now for all of you, if the country is saying every lockdown restrictions will be lifted in a month, if the world is thinking that everything is going to be back to normal within by July 31st or by the month of August, we are only dreaming. You are going to see a completely new world economically, socially, with respect to security in every form. With respect to crossing borders, it's going to become much more difficult. Countries are going to become much more suspicious about each other. Trades are going to become difficult. So we are entering actually a very difficult phase. Post-COVID era is going to be a difficult phase. Let's know that it's going to be a very uncertain phase. But that is what I believe is is uh, is actually a opportunity for entrepreneurs. In one book called Entrepreneur Mindset, written by Macmillan, he says uncertainties are where entrepreneurs are actually born. Right? Entrepreneurs are actually born among uncertainties because they are the people who capitalize uncertainties and convert them into opportunity. So you have a chance over here either to moan about it. You heard so many people who lost their job and committed suicide, okay, kill themselves, kill their family, and all those things. Now, that is not a solution to the problem. Okay, that is not definitely a solution to the problem. But there are people who become hopeless because they lost a job. But or you can be a person who may say, let me look at some opportunity from the government, some temporary fix from the government. Or you can be a person who will say, I will step in and solve the problem. Which place you want to be, it's your choice, right? I would suggest, and I want to be part of people who would step in and say, let's solve the problem. Let's solve this crisis. Let's develop our country. Let's start something new. I know that situations are uncertain, but these are the times where entrepreneurs are born, because entrepreneurs have mindset of solving problems, finding opportunities where others see problem, right? So the COVID era is here to stay. So what I want to say is the COVID era is here to stay. It is not still over. We are going to talk about post-COVID era now, but it's not over. How are we going to go through this post-COVID era also, we'll discuss. But let me tell you, uncertain times for our country, which is quite peaceful for majority of its time, except for few skirmishes with our neighbors. Most of the time, our country has always been peaceful. We have never invaded a foreign territory or anything. So in that way, to be told, except for the emergency period in India, most of the time India have actually enjoyed a peaceful time. Though there were poverty, though there was starvation, there was drought and all those things, but still India has been a pretty peaceful place to stay. But if you look at the world, there are countries who are looking at uncertainties. If you look at this map, some of you would recognize it's a map of Venezuela. And all of you recognize Venezuela as a country in South America, right? Now, if I should tell you some statistics, Venezuela is not one of the largest companies in South America. It is one of the smallest countries in South American peninsula. But at the same time, Venezuela is also a country which was known until 2014, if I should say, as one of the wealthiest countries in South America, South American Peninsula, or the wealthiest by far in the South American Peninsula. Right? If you know, I believe some of you may be knowing that Venezuela is also a country with the largest reserves of crude oil in the world. I don't know how many of you know this fact. Most of us think that Saudi Arabia is the largest, has the largest reserves of crude oil in the world, right? Or USA or Russia has the largest reserves of crude oil in the world. No, Venezuela has the largest reserves of crude oil than anywhere in the world, it seems. So Venezuela is actually having oil wealth, right? Venezuela was also was a very prosperous country until 2014, but today the fact of the matter is Venezuela is known as one of the poorest countries and one of the country which is in turmoil continuously and on the verge of collapse. Now let me tell you from their history what went wrong with them. In the year 1930, 1931 itself, Venezuela had actually discovered that they have this wealth called oil underneath their ground. And Venezuela started relying on it. Venezuela thought about exploiting that oil wealth. And since they did not have technology, they looked to the Western countries like United States and United Kingdom, the superpowers of those days. And they actually came and helped Venezuela explore their oil wealth. They had they were digging the oil for Venezuela and they were selling in international market against a profit sharing on a profit sharing basis. But the profit sharing was very unjustified because 85% of the profit would belong to the country which was actually doing the digging. That means United Kingdom or United States, and only 15% of the profit would go to the country from where the oil was done. So this was a little unjust this thing, but since they did not have technology, they didn't mind people coming and doing business in their place. Now, this is what was going in Venezuela until 1960s, 1970s, when Venezuela came to know the technological know-how and started making these sectors, that is oil sector, into a public sector company. And that is where Venezuela actually took over all its oil sector and started actually selling its oil in international market. Now there was a big oil glut in the international market, and so Venezuela was not doing pretty well. It was not up to until 1970s, 1980s where oil was considered as such a big factor in the world's economy. But after 1990s, there was a lot of socialistic reforms in Venezuela. And there was a leader called Hugo Chavez who got elected in 1998. And he was a person who was called as people's person. He wanted to do a lot of favor for the people of their country. And that was a time when Venezuela was actually going through an economic crisis. But 1998, when he came, he actually started winning the hearts of the people of this country. He was a very charismatic leader. He started preaching about the economic prosperity of Venezuela. And he understood that if there is one shortcut way of making Venezuela super prosperous in a short time, it was by exploiting its oil wealth. So he started digging a lot of Venezuela oil and started selling it in international market. 2004, as we all may recall, was a year when oil prices all over the world started skyrocketing. And this actually greatly benefited Venezuela. Venezuela started selling its oil more in the international market, making more profits, and that actually added to the wealth of Venezuela exponentially. They had an exponential growth to their economic development. So 2004 to 2010, because of this excess oil wealth, 95% of the GDP of Venezuela was dependent upon oil wealth by then. So because of this excess oil wealth, Venezuela understood that it can now think about making entire country into public sector industry rather than relying on private partners. Imagine if in India, 95% of the economy is run by government-run firms. Why should we be bothered about that 5% firms? 5% firms like Infosys, TCS, Wipro, should we be bothered about it? But that's not the fact of the matter, because in India, majority of the stakes go in private sector, and we know whatever stakes are there in the private sector do pretty well. So But in Venezuela, because 95% of their wealth was created using oil, they became very suspicious about the 5% companies which are private sector coming. There were banks, there were IT industries, there were agriculture based industries where foreign investors had come and set up industries in Venezuela. But Venezuela, because of its insecurity, started making those private sector industries into public sector industries. 2010 to 12, this landmark decision was taken, and 2012, unfortunately, Hugo Chavez passes away. But the oil prices were pretty high. Hugo Chavez, before passing away, had given his reign to his loyalist called Mr. Maduro, who's still the president of Venezuela. And Mr. Maduro started governing, but he governed the country in a very wrong fashion. 2014, to his utter shock, where the oil prices all over the world started falling down. To the utter disappointment of Venezuela, Venezuela, a country which was by then a country with the largest per capita income. Back in 1947, 1948 itself, when India had got its independence, Venezuela was already one of the fourth richest country GDP wise in the world, per capita GDP wise in the world. And today, back in 2010, Venezuela was already in that position of one of the richest country in the world per capita basis because of its oil wealth. Now, Venezuela was enjoying this position. The fact of the matter was the government had subsidized so many things in the country. They had subsidized education. You could get free education till you undergo your higher studies. You could get free ration of foods. Even if you work 4 hours a day for maybe 4 to 5 days a week, you could live a luxurious life because government has subsidized food, water, everything because oil was bringing so much wealth into Venezuela. And that was one way the government could stay in the power. The leaders understood. So the leaders, they publicize all the country, all the industries in the country, they made public sector. They drove away private investors and private firms and all the other diverse industries. And the only industry that was functional in Venezuela by the year 2014 was oil. And they were not very bad. They were not disappointed with it because Venezuela was making 95% of its income anyway from those companies. But till 2014, most of the other industries had actually either quit Venezuela or because of poor management was on the verge of shutting down in Venezuela. And this was not good news when 2014 oil prices also started falling. Now the oil prices, which were so high in the international market from 2004 to 14, started plunging from 2014 onwards. 2014 onwards, the oil prices plunged so much by 70 to 80% at a time in a year that Venezuela started going into through inflation. The inflation rate, which is hardly 10 to 20%, became 200%. Today, at the end of 6 years, to cut the story short for want of time, Venezuela has one of the highest inflation rates in the world by far. By far, it has close to 1 million% inflation rate in Venezuela. So the economy of Venezuela is worth nothing in the other countries, right? So the cash that Venezuelans have is nothing for the other. The country which enjoyed the status of one of the richest countries in the world on per capita basis, today 88% of the country relies on humanitarian aid that is received from United Nations and other places. Almost more than 88% of the country, that means, are living under poverty line, who cannot afford a square meal. Now, these are the very people who were enjoying a luxurious life. Remember, there is no government subsidies anymore. You cannot get free food. You cannot get free water. Imagine your colleges were teaching free of cost to you in India till now. Imagine if we make it compulsory for you to pay 50,000 rupees fees suddenly from next semester onwards, you won't be happy, right? The same thing happened with Venezuelan residents. They were not happy by government suddenly bringing in all the fee and the money because they had got used to living a luxurious life, a life based on freebies. And because oil industry was the only industry developed in the Venezuelan government, most of them had only one specialization. All the other industries were driven. So the problem that happened with Venezuela was they started getting into a crisis situation. And today, in 6 years, Venezuela has still not come out of crisis. In fact, it's much more worse. It is in a much more worse crisis. The government is almost at the point of crumbling. and there is daily civil disobedience movement in the country. International governments are putting pressure on Venezuelan government to step down and allow many other reforms to happen. Let austerity measures be put in place, but all these things are just not working. But let me just tell you, now this didn't happen in a day. The fall of Venezuela didn't happen in a day, but it did not happen a very long time also. It happened just in the gap of 6 years. 2014, a country that was one of the most prosperous country in the world became one of the poorest country in the world today, right? This country is also having massive refugee crisis. This country, people are actually fleeing the country to neighboring countries like Colombia, Chile, and all those countries. And millions and millions of people are actually quitting the country, looking for better opportunities, healthcare facility. Healthcare facility is not as schools, colleges are not happening in Venezuela. So all these crises could be avoided if there would have been some governance, right governance in place. Now, if I should ask you a reason, why did Venezuela fail at its core? If I should ask you a question, why should Venezuela fail? And I'm not expecting an answer from you now for want of time, but if you just think about it, why did Venezuela fail? The reason is very clear, is because of some strategic decisions in time which they tried to use to favor their country's people, but at the same time they actually annihilated their entrepreneurial culture in the country. You rely on only one industry, that is oil, and you make every industry public sector company, that is, you make it government owned. Okay, imagine if everything in India is government owned tomorrow. It is not the case only in India where government owned companies fare bad. It is also the case in other countries. So imagine everything is government owned tomorrow. That is what Venezuela faced. So one thing is their over reliance on one resource. Second thing was they did not diversify their economy. They did not diversify. In fact, the diverse industries that were there, they actually drove them away. Now, these two reasons were so significant in deciding Venezuela's destiny and deciding Venezuela's destiny. Let me tell you, Venezuela is just an example. Okay, it's just a country of I think around 3.5 crore people. If Venezuela's economy can fail, and just because economy failed, the entire country is in turmoil today. Entire country to say. Okay, India cannot be very comfortable sitting that our economy is fine. Okay, our economy is fine. Let me tell you, whenever a country meddles with its economic sovereignty, it is actually playing with fire. So, given the conditions that are sustaining in India today, our economy is also reeling today. So, it is not very good news. Okay, and Venezuela is a country which has not done well with its economic crisis. It has actually crashed. But that is Venezuela. Let me give you another example from a country whose second name itself is a startup nation. Whose second name itself is a startup nation. And I would say the country, as you can see the map, is Israel. How many of you have heard about Israel? And if you have heard about Israel, what have you heard? Now, if I should ask you this question, many of you would say, yes, Israel is a country in news always because of Palestinian border problem and all this other problem. But also, Israel is also a country which is known for its innovation, its engineering talent, its manufacturing sector, quality manufacturing sector, right? Let me tell you the Israel's history. Israel was a country which was formed in 1947, almost the same time that India got its independence. And if I should tell you, the population of Israel is only 80 lakhs. Okay, population of Chennai is 90 lakhs. So population of Coimbatore is around 40 lakhs. You put two Coimbatore, you'll get Israel. That small country. Its population of Delhi is close to 2.1 crore. So you can put maybe 2 or 3 Israels in Delhi. Okay. So Israel is actually a very small country, land-wise and also people-wise. They're just 8 to 8.5 million people living there, just 85 lakhs people. But still, what this country is doing in the world today is amazing. But let me tell you, Israel did not have this glorious days as it is having today. Israel was a country with which faced a lot of uncertainties. Let me tell you, the countries that neighbor Israel are around 350 times bigger than Israel, and none of them are friendly with Israel. Most of those countries, including Jordan, Saudi Arabia, Iran and all these countries that neighbor are close to Israel are not friendly with Israel. Syria and all these things, they are actually against Israel's existence, and they have their demands, because of which Israel is not at all uh, allowed to be friendly with these countries. And these countries do not trade with Israel. These countries for a long time did not trade with Israel, had no diplomatic relationship with Israel. Egypt went to war with Israel a couple of times. Not only Egypt, but 6 nations waged war with Israel a couple of times during the last 50 years. And Israel almost every single day has been fighting their enemies from all the side. And let me tell you, their enemies are far more bigger with respect to population, with respect to land mass. If you compare, if you put the countries Egypt, Syria, Jordan, Libya, and all these countries that surround Israel, they are 350 times bigger than Israel. I think they are more than 100 times bigger in population of Israel. So they are massive countries surrounding Israel, and none of them are friendly. None of them are friendly. Most of them accuse Israel as to oppress Palestine, and all those things happen. Now, so Israel is there for a lot of wrong news. But also at the other reason, though in the last 50 years, Israel has been struggling so much, fighting many wars for its existence, continuously been banned by so many countries to not do trade, right? In spite of all these reasons, today Israel is counted as one of the richest country in the world. Per capita basis, one of the most prosperous countries, one of the 20 most prosperous countries in the world. Israel is considered the world leader in technological innovations. Israel is considered, you look at any world-class companies, they are there in Israel. But Israel did not have this past. In fact, in 1947, Israel faced one of the worst Holocaust. In 1947, Venezuela was a country which was one of the richest country in the world. But at the same time, Israel was a country which is newly formed. People had just moved into Israel. The Jewish people had just settled into Israel, and they were building their country from ground up, right? And that is where they were, and today they're one of the most prosperous country in the world. Now, what worked for them? Let's look at history and learn from it. They had an uncertain time. Now, let me tell you, they also went through a lot of inflation. Like 1970s, 80s, when they had fought 2 wars back to back in 5 to 6 years time, and they had a lot of incumbency. They were spending a lot of amount on their defense forces, like equipments, their defense equipments and all those things, and the country was actually going through a lot of uncertain times. But that is a time also when Israel started to rethink about its cultural heritage and try to rethink about its existence for the next 50 to 100 years. How will they exist? And that is where they actually started putting in new practices and new cultures within the country, and that has actually greatly helped Israel. So let me tell you, Israel actually started building a culture of building companies, diversifying its economy, because Israel does not have any natural resources for its merit. It is desert. 2/3 of the country, Israel, when it was occupied in 1947, it was 2/3 of the country was uncultivatable. It was desert. Okay. Today, Israel is one country which has fought back deforestation. Okay. Most of the countries have lost more area to deforestation. Israel is one country which was 2/3 of the country which was not cultivatable has become now cultivatable. Now more than 2/3 of the country is cultivatable. It is an agriculture miracle. Look at agriculture inventions. It has happened in the drip irrigation. Has happened in Israel. You look at many of these irrigation technologies. It has happened in Israel. Our Indian farmers are thankful to a lot of Israeli innovations in terms of agriculture. Israel is a world leader in agriculture technology today and is self-reliant. Imagine a country whose 2/3 of the land was desert is now self-reliant agriculturally, right? Israel is a country which is known for its technological might. We are so proud to have our own aircraft built in India after 27 years of research and development. But even that aircraft has most of its navigation system that are made in Israel, right? Most of the Indian defense equipments now are not purchased from Soviet Union anymore. 31% of our defense equipments are actually imported from Israel. Imagine Israel, a country of only 80 lakhs people. Can you guess that? Israel, a country of just 80 lakhs people, is providing 30% of India's defense equipment. Does that make us shameful that we are not able to manufacture, though we have a population of engineers that may match the population of Israel itself, but still we do not manufacture most of our defenses. We buy it from Israel, a country as small as uh, maybe Chennai, right? A country as small as Chennai was looked up to provide solutions in water when Chennai was facing the worst drought in 145 years. You remember? Last to last year, Chennai was told to face one of the worst drought, and the drought was said to be the worst in 145 years. There was no water anywhere in Chennai, and Chennai was relying on water being got from different states, and Chennai was going through a terrible water crisis. Subramanian Swamy, one of our cabinet ministers, then said in his statement that there is no solution for solving water crisis in Chennai in India. Go to Israel, they have a solution. Wasn't that little shameful for a country of 1.3 billion people to look at a tiny country like Israel, which is smaller than Chennai, for solutions in water technology? Yeah, but that is Israel. If you look at Nobel laureates who have won Nobel laureates throughout the history of Nobel prizes, 40% of them have been Israelis. You look at technologies in software and IT. Look at companies like Facebook, they have founders who are Jewish. Google, they're Jewish descendants. Oracle, Larry Ellison, he's a Jewish descendant. You see, so many companies in United States of America who are global leaders in technology are actually Jewish, have Jewish entrepreneurs running it. You look at technological hubs, most of them are set up in Cisco has its largest R&D development center in Israel. If you look in Haifa, Israel, if you look at Microsoft has its largest R&D division in Israel. You enjoy Google Maps navigation, you should actually appreciate an application called Waze, which was bought by Google. Google back in 2000s, some years back. So all these innovations are happening in Israel. PayPal is secure today. It's because of an Israeli innovation company called Fraud Science. So Israeli companies are having its footprint all over the world. Yeah, and Israel has become one of the largest exporter of software industry, whether it is agriculture industry, defense equipment manufacturing industry, electronics and technological industry. Israel has been a world leader. And if you look at their economy and if you ask them what worked for Israel, you don't have any natural resources, you don't have oil, you don't have gold, you don't have copper, iron or anything. What worked for Israel, though it was not resource rich nation. You know, Venezuela, such a resource rich nation, is one of the poorest nations in the world today. But Israel, which is a resource starved nation, is one of the richest nation today. Now, if you look at what worked for Israel, if you go and ask their prime minister, they will definitely tell you Israel is prosperous today because we have built in an entrepreneurial innovative culture within the people of Israel. In Israel, being an entrepreneur is a way of life. Israel is also a country with the largest density of entrepreneurs compared to any other place in the world, right? And Israeli entrepreneurs' failures are actually celebrated. In India, we sue them, okay, but in Israel, they celebrate them. Israel was also a country which thought about venture capitalism way back in 1986. So all these innovations can happen in Israel. All these changes could happen in Israel in the last 50 to 70 years, thanks to the entrepreneurial mindset and the culture they have built into their citizen. And that is only credited. It is not because of their education system. Indian education system is at par with Israel. It is not because of their any other thing, but it is because of an entrepreneurial mindset they have developed. Now remember, Israel is a country that faces uncertainties on every day, but still it is developing. Still it is developing. You know, today, look at the context of India. You know, you cannot say India is as bad as Venezuela. By the same way, we cannot say India is as good as Israel. And you may say these are smaller countries. You know, India is much larger. I understand, given that. But let me tell you, if there is any solution we can provide for this country, it is not in government aid. It is not in any temporary fixes provided by government. It is only by providing an entrepreneurial mindset for the people of our country. Our Prime Minister speaks about this, right? He speaks about Startup India, right? He speaks about Atmanirbhar India. You know, what they are saying from the background is there's no other way by which we can make this country economically stable to increase the gross development product of this country is not possible unless and otherwise we create entrepreneurs. Because entrepreneurs are people who create industries. By creating industries, they create jobs, and by creating jobs, they give mileage to the economy and overall progress and development of the country. Right? Let me tell you, today the greatest problem that our country, India, is facing is not COVID-19. The greatest problem our country is facing is unemployment. Let me tell you, India is also one of the youngest country in the world, the youngest by far. 60% of our country is young. That means if we can use the 60% of the population which can work for the next 40 to 50 years, India can actually speed through its development. But if this 60 to 70% of the country's young population do not have an entrepreneurial mindset, but they stay there with a slave mindset, they are only going to look for opportunities which will not come. Because if there are no industries, there are no opportunities. Everybody wants a job. When I go to a class and I ask how many of you want a job, 99% of them will say we want to go for a job. Sometimes 100% of the class we want a best placement. Universities market our courses based upon placement, right? You will have 100% placement. You will have 100%. You know what? There are no opportunities for 7 billion people in this world, or maybe 1.3 billion people in this. There are no government, no leader can provide that. The only way we can create opportunity is by creating an entrepreneurial culture like Israel have done. We cannot rely on, yes, India is resource rich nation, but even resource rich nations can become poor if there is no entrepreneurial mindset. Because if you cannot exploit your resources, somebody else will come and exploit your resources and exploit your nation. That's what is happening in India now. So in post COVID-19 world, where we have a very uncertain time, the only fix to the solution, I believe, is by creating an entrepreneurial culture and mindset among the people of this country. And I'm so happy that institutions like MET and so many other institutions in Tamil Nadu who are taking an initiative to create this entrepreneurial mindset among its students and faculty. Let me tell you, my faculty friends and students, you do not go and look for opportunity in this world. Every one of you will not find out if you cannot make your own, become an entrepreneur. Because by creating jobs, you're doing a great service for this country. I would say you're doing a better service rather than going and fighting in India-China border or India-Pakistan border, right? By suing a country or by boycotting a country's product, India cannot survive. Okay, the way ahead for India is create its own economy. And who creates economy? Not politicians. Come on, not governments. They cannot create economy in this country. They cannot create jobs. Our government, central government promised 2 crore jobs. It will not come from heaven. Okay, it has to come from entrepreneurs. One entrepreneurs like Ankit Bhatti and Bhavish Agarwal from Ola Cabs can create 50,000 jobs within a span of 4 years. None of the state governments can create it. None of the state governments, right? One entrepreneur, one entrepreneur from your college can create 1,000 jobs in Kanniyakumari district. You know, one entrepreneur can do it. Governments cannot do it. Government, MPs, MLAs cannot do it unless and otherwise they have an entrepreneurial mindset. So what I understand is in post-COVID time, when the country like India is facing the worst uncertainty it has faced ever, our unemployment rate today is the worst in last 45 years. Customer buying confidence today is rated as one of the worst after post-independence period. So in such a condition, the only fix to this economy is not giving an economic package and fixing. Yes, it is a temporary fix. But the way ahead, I believe strongly, is by creating an entrepreneurial mindset. A mindset that looks at uncertainties and finds opportunity, capitalizes it and exploits it and uses it for the benefit of the country and nation. So that is the first thing I like to share. Now, let me tell you how some people have actually looked at these opportunities. Maybe this is the future that you're going to look at. Most of you are teachers and students in colleges. Maybe tomorrow you'll find your students coming to the class like this, right? If the college is opened as told by UGC by October or so, maybe we will find our colleges open like this. We'll have individual benches. We'll have people maintaining social distance. And for sure, compulsory, they'll have to wear masks, right? So is India new to this culture? Yeah. Is India new to this culture? I don't know. Let's see. Now, if you look at pain points of wearing this mask is tremendous, right? Some pain points, some people are saying there is a gap in the mask, so we don't feel confident about, being protected. There are no masks with different sizes and shapes. Some people, healthcare workers or people who work in the front, like police people and healthcare workers, have to wear masks for a long time. That leaves this indelible mark on their face. So much of pain point. Do you think mask culture in India is starting now? We can see our students sitting with mask, right? But let me tell you this: these are not students going to schools in post-COVID times. Okay, now you may be saying, "Oh, some place in the country the schools have started." No, the schools have not started in any place except for the examination that is conducted. These are not photos from our schools operating after post-COVID-19 time. These are examples of school-going children from Delhi, because Delhi is having one of the worst pollutions from the month of November to the month of February. Especially during this cold season, Delhi faces one of the worst pollutions because of the stubble burning that happens in neighboring neighboring states. And the pollution in Delhi becomes so hazardous that the people cannot step out of their homes without wearing a mask. You can see examples of students in the school sitting with masks. Now, Delhiites are very no prone to this. They know mask is a way of life, but that was not everywhere, right? And this is not a very comfortable thing. You see, there is a lot of pain point in wearing a mask. You get a pain behind your ear. Your mask becomes wet quite often because of the what do you say, the saliva that come out of your mouth. And the very reason Delhiites were using the mask was protecting themselves not from a virus infection but from a pollution problem. Now, this problem was actually studied by a college student in IIT Delhi, and he actually came up with a solution called nasofilter. Okay, now he came up with a solution empathizing with his own mother, who was actually an asthmatic patient, and she was reluctant of wearing mask whenever she went out. And to solve her problem, and likewise her, there are so many people who would go into pollution without a mask just because it is uncomfortable, inconvenient, right? And many of you, it is very polluted outside, but still you won't wear a mask because of it is discomfort. Given the condition of COVID-19 itself, many of us are reluctant in wearing mask in public places because it does not look good, cool, or it does hurt you for after wearing for a long time. Looking at this problem, one student came with a solution called nasofilter. As you can see, he has come with a nasal orifice, a nasal filter which actually sticks to your nasal orifice and is totally not visible unless and until you look carefully at the person. And this has the same effect of wearing a mask. In fact, better than that, because it can actually absorb particulate matters up to PM 2.5, which are the most hazardous particulate matter that are found in Delhi air pollution. So this innovation came into play, and this actually has made a lot of waves and it won a lot of national awards. Now, this is the kind of solution. Now, design thinking is a session I keep for a different class, but this is a kind of solution people think about when they look at uncertainties and when a problem. This guy had an entrepreneurial mindset. Now, let me tell you, an entrepreneur came with the solution. The Delhi government came with the solution of odd even. Okay, the Delhi government came with the solution of everyone wear mask. I know you are inconvenient, but you wear mask, right? But there's an entrepreneur who came with the solution that the customer wanted. In post-COVID-19 era, you also have to think about solutions that the customer want, not as you want. Most of us are very quick to give solutions that we want. Now, this will solve the problem, but it will solve the problem with a lot of inconvenience. Now, you as an entrepreneur in post-COVID-19 era, you have a lot of business opportunities in front of you, provided you're looking at creating products that are required for customers' use or convenient use of customer, right? This is one of the example. The other example I would like to give you is from different types of masks that are coming in the market, right? Look at the solution people have come with, trendy solutions. Right now, I know some masks come with different layers of protection. You say frontline workers need N95 mask because it protects them much more better. But at the same time, it is very oxygen defunct thing. You wouldn't be able to breathe properly. But some of you would like to look cool by wearing a mask, so you find masks with different design and structures and all. Well, mask is becoming trendier day by day. Many of them were very displeased because mask covers most of their face. So a photo studio in Kerala, they came up with this solution of creating mask which actually prints your face, a part of your face on the mask. So when you're talking to people, your face is not completely hidden. And this became pretty popular, covered in a lot of news channels. If you look at another solution, this was an Israeli solution where they came up with the mask, which is self-cleaning. As you can see this mask over here to the left, the blue color mask. Whenever you plug this mask to a plug point, this mask actually heats up and kills all the virus particles on it. So you not go and wash this mask, it has a filament which cleans the mask. If you look at trends for times and seasons, already you know, for the Onam season, you have mask that is already created to match the Onam season saris and maybe dhotis and all. And you know, already masks have been actually paired with umbrellas, paired with shirts and tops, saris and all. Okay, so mask is becoming a culture. So this is just one of the solutions. He's one of my students who came up with a solution of mask which will actually find out people in your proximity. So if anybody comes in 2 feet distance of you, it has an ultrasonic sensor, it will beep. So it will alert you that people are coming too close to you. You need to maintain a social distancing. At the same time, if your hands each to go towards your face quite often, it will also alert you if you're in public place. So his way of solving this problem. And another girl came up with a solution of having masks which will make your lips visible, because a lot of children who are hearing disabled, or who are challenged with their hearing sense, or who are deaf, these children cannot listen to us or understand our talk only through sign language, because sign language vary a lot. But most of these children have taken up a new art of lip reading, and lip reading will not be visible for these children if you're talking from behind a mask, right? So one girl from university in USA came up with this solution for deaf children. Now I just gave you an example of how people from different parts of this country and the world have come up with solution that benefits the day and the time, right? Can you think about problems in this post-COVID-19 era? And there are so much. When you go to your workspace, you cannot interact with your employee friends the same way. If you're looking at students sitting in the college, it is a problem. You cannot make them 2 or 3 people sitting on the same bench. When you look at the accessibilities in your campuses, whether it is a water doctor, whether it is campus canteen, they cannot be used in the same way. Every single place there is going to be problems because of the COVID-19 era. But can you take a step forward and solve these problems by using your design thinking skill, or I would say a common sense skill? I would say you can become an entrepreneur. But remember, whatever problem you solve, an entrepreneur or effective entrepreneur always solves a problem by keeping customer at center point, by keeping customer at the center. He makes things that the customer likes. He makes things that the customer affirms. He makes things that the customer will validate and definitely will buy with the price. So whenever you're solving some problem, always think from the perspective of the customer. Attribution map helps us do it. Design thinking is a tool which helps us do it. Value proposition canvas helps us do it. There's a few tools which we may discuss in the future. In the future, but these are certain tools that you can use to actually enlighten students and also faculties, who can use this tool to enlighten their students to solve problems from the perspective of the post-COVID-19. There are so many opportunities because there are so many problems, right? Every problem is opportunity in disguise. So look at opportunities come in the post-COVID-19 in work area, in market area, in public spaces, in shopping places. There are a lot of opportunities. In the devices we use on daily basis, the mouse that we may use on daily basis may have to be replaced, or maybe there has to be change in that. So all the spaces needs change, revamp. Maybe you are an entrepreneur, you can think about solutions that the customer wants. So to end my session, I would say post COVID-19 era, you will find work, but you'll find it difficult to find a job. Now some of you would be saying, so what is the difference between job and work? Both are same, right? What is the difference between job and work? Why do you confuse us like this? there's a big difference between job and work. You can be fired out of your job, but you can never be fired out of your work. You can never be fired out of it. The job is what the world has taught you, or you have become qualified for. You have an MTech degree, a PhD degree. You can be a faculty according to UGC norms, right? That is your job. Or work is something that you do with your gifts, with your talents, right? When I was a faculty in the university, I used to handle my classes for electronics and communication engineering. That was my job. But of the classes, I used to engage students in entrepreneurial venture creation. That was my work, because that was what I was willing to do. That was my passion. That was my talent. I could communicate with people, encourage, motivate them. Now that is my work. No, you have to identify what is your job and what is your work. Let me tell you, tomorrow your campus, your university, or your company can fire you out of your job, but they can never fire you out of your work, right? My university can tell me, do not come to the university from tomorrow because they do not need my qualification, but they can never tell me not contribute in the area of entrepreneurship because they know my work. The same way, I would suggest you to find your work. Okay, your work is associated with your giftings, with your talents, with your inherent strengths, right? Identify them and employ them. And let me tell you, if you find your work, I believe you'll find the greatest of entrepreneurial opportunity. Let me tell you, work is your gifts and talents being put to use to achieve a solution for a problem. Job is a standard operating procedure being followed for an employer to fulfill his vision. Right? This is the definition of job and work for me. To close by, job is something you can anytime be fired, and it is very environmental affected. But work, you can never be fired out of your work until your last breath, right? Because work is what you're passionate about. It is about your purpose. It is about your gifting, talents. You can never be fired out of your work. So I would suggest, as a closing remark, go find your work, quit your job. I'm joking, don't quit the job. But even if you're in your job, discover your work, discover your strength, what you are good at doing, do it, and solve problems in the society. Because solving the problems, you will discover the greatest of all. So to close, entrepreneurship is a very fascinating journey, and it's only becoming more fascinating in these uncertain times in post-COVID era, or COVID-19 era. But you need to have the right mindset. I told you about the Israeli mindset. You need to have an Israeli mindset, okay, who look at problems and uncertainties as their friends and create opportunities in the world, right? Rather than as foes. Yeah. So creating an entrepreneur mindset. If you can create an entrepreneur mindset among 50 students in your college, you are doing great service for this nation, because these 50 students will go out and create industries which will employ thousands of people, which will take out those unemployed people from our country and give them a meaning, a purpose in life. Yes. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm open for any questions, doubts. That's all with my session. I'm sorry I've taken a lot of time.
No, sir. Yeah. Of course, like it was worth listening. Okay. And like I was, I was a great listener of you. Everyone, like it was really useful, and really a lot of ideas been generated. Sure. So most probably, like we'll take some questions, and participants, yes, if you could ask directly, you could raise your hands. I can unmute you, or else if you could post in the chat box, maybe I can communicate with Vishal sir so that the purpose of arranging this session will be fulfilled. So before that, I have a question, because recently, yes, like, yes, in LinkedIn, sure, I was just going through across startup, because the one, if you ask me what are the two good things you have done this lockdown, one thing is I've registered my company. For example, I have I'm an entrepreneur right from 2010. Yeah. I've started a couple of startups, and all my startups were failing. Like fail. That's all. Even I have in 2011, I have started a company called Change Guru. I thought I was said with you in Change Guru. Yes. And it's an alternative. Like at that time, it was like the vision of mine is like what you have done, but the technology was not much into technology. Yes. But and consecutively, I just started failing in startups, and then only then I understood what really this entrepreneurship is all about. Failure should not stop. You have to come again, and you have, yes, to build one. That's why I've attended a lot of the EDII workshops, and that's why I became your student as well, maybe a student of learning. And then I thought design thinking is one best solution that will give productive startups.
Yes.
So right from the empathetic consideration to closing a product and prototype development, design thinking is very much important in developing startup. Now I am a design thinking company, the first design thinking training company of Kanniyakumari district. And Lighting and Medios Private Limited. That's what I do. But my question is this: after that, I was going through LinkedIn for a lot of startups. You know why they fail or why they end X or Y factors. In the last week, there was a list released, a list of best 10 startups in the world.
Okay.
For the 5 best startups goes to China. The next 4 goes to US, and 1 comes to India, and that's Paytm. One communications private limited, that's Paytm. So at this point of time, my question is, why do most of the startups either they are failing to plan or planning to fail? What's that like? What comes behind in the startups, especially in India? So I've studied like each day across in India. There are almost in a year, when it takes a year, we have almost 100 plus startups coming up each year. But only we recognize 2 or 3 in a class level. Maybe, for example, a team like Baiju, they have grown in a very short span. They have a unique idea. They have a unique USP. Likewise, what's your suggestion on improving a startup?
So I would say now this is a session by itself. There is a very thin line of difference though between a startup and a business, which many of us do not understand. And we say a startup as a business as startup sometimes, and some of us interchangeably use this word, and we don't understand this word called startup and a business. And let me give an example. KPN Travel or Pervin Travel, ABD Travels, City Travels, all these travels, all of you would have heard, right? And they have buses. They have a lot of buses which ply between maybe Coimbatore, Chennai, Coimbatore, Kanniyakumari, Chennai, Kanniyakumari, and all those things. Now, look at these companies, whether it's KPN, ABT, City, all these I would say are businesses because they need a lot of investment, a lot of buses, they need a lot of liabilities and all this. But at the same time, in the same segment of solving a problem of transport, I would consider Redbus as a startup. All of you know Redbus, and Redbus as a startup because Redbus does not buy its buses, does not buy its drivers or cleaners or travel agencies. It actually connects them. Now, startups are something like that. Startup solves a mass problem. Startup actually creates a disruptive ecosystem. Startups are something which are investor friendly. Startups are also scalable exponentially. So startups are actually that, right? So in the same way, the second thing that is very important is the business model they are on. Let me give another example. Red Taxi is there, Ola, Uber is there, right? Now, Ola is something that started after Red Taxi. And if you look at Red Taxi as a startup, where do you hear about Red Taxi? Maybe in Tamil Nadu. Beyond Tamil Nadu, do you hear much about Red Taxi? You won't. But if you look at Ola, which was actually established after Red Taxi, actually has been all over India and also some other parts of the world, right? Now, if you look at Red Taxi, it was backed by one of the richest people in our state, right? But Ola was started by starting entrepreneurs, students. But still, Ola has actually expanded. Now, the reason is the business model they chose to operate. The business, what you do is important, or the startup, what you do is important. At the same time, how you do that business is more important. That is where understanding about business model is very important. I believe these two are very important criteria which decide the success of a business. First of all, are they doing a startup business? They should have very good clarity. And second thing is, what business model are they choosing? Because based upon that, your revenue generation depends, your exponential growth depends, everything depends. Yeah. So I believe I've answered to an extent. This needs actually a lot more time. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, like I was very much. It was very much nearing to my my problem solution. And one other thing, it may look very crucial, sir. The problem is, I've read in Chetan Bhagat what Young India wants. Here and there, you have mentioned a statement which is very much practical nowadays.
Yes.
This book came maybe 3 or 4 years back. What you mentioned is that We at Indian startups are very focused on money rather than values.
Yes.
We always keep on commenting US startups or UK startups or any other startups outside India. They are more much valued on their value ecosystem. They create their own value ecosystem, and we create our own boundary with money. So, how much? What's your viewpoint on this statement by Chetan? Like, it's a kind
definitely.
of.
If you look at companies that have lived on for a year, years or even generations, they've always put people before profit. Right? They've always put people before profit. Now, this is actually an ethical value, but it also goes in a long run. When you create values, people pay for your values. That create the right ecosystem for a business to thrive. If people pay for your product, it is only temporary. Okay, that is why people think a lot about branding, right? People think a lot about brand statements. What are they selling? They're not selling their product. They're selling their values. They're selling their class. They're selling. So in one way, I would say creating value is actually the go thing in the next, because definitely there will be somebody who will be like selling a product like you. So if you want to differentiate yourself, if you want to find your unique value proposition there, you need to create value in the market. You need to create a value, right? Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, that was answer. And now I'll go some questions from the attendees. So Ramesh has a question here.
Yeah, I'm reading that.
Yes, I'm very much interested to start a company, but startup support is not there. Is there any startup support for me to start a company like government support some experience?
Yeah. So, Mr. Ramesh, I would say the best support is yourself. Okay. So, as I stressed upon here, find your work, find something that you can solve locally, a problem that you can solve locally. And let me tell you, in India, people give you money provided you show them money, right? So as far as companies are concerned. So all these words called angel investors and all those people, they only pitch in when you have some market validation as well as traction, right? So in the first stage of your business, I would always recommend do bootstrapping. Now, bootstrapping means start with what you have, start with where you are, start with what you are. Okay. So think about solving a problem with your expertise, with your limited savings and whatever you have. But at the same time, if you're going for product-based startup, if you could reach out to EDII Tamilnadu, and if you go to their portal, you'll find out that they have one program called Innovation Voucher Program. Now, Innovation Voucher Program gives you a grant up to 2 lakhs if you have an innovative idea which can become a product and which can commercially sell. Yeah, so they have this innovation voucher program. So yes, innovation voucher program is one program. If you have a good prototype which can be made into a market validated product, then they are ready to pay you up. They are ready to give you a government grant of up to 5 lakh rupees. So you can actually start with an idea, get a grant of 2 lakhs, and then get a prototype, get a grant of 5 lakhs. So up to 7 lakhs of grant government of Tamil Nadu through Entrepreneurship Development Innovation Institute is willing to give you. This is one line of support. If you have an excellent startup idea, go approach some business incubation centers like MET or some other business incubation centers. These business incubation centers sometimes are supported by even government aids. So if I am an Atal incubation center and I am receiving government aid of 10 crores or 20 crores, it is also my responsibility to give some part of that money as seed money to potential startups. So if you think your startup has a potential in the area of that incubation center or the thrust areas of the incubation center, go approach them. They will give you some seed money. At the same time, they'll give you some incubation space. Now, it may come against rent, but definitely you can get support from there. As I said, in the early stage, nobody's going to trust you, so bootstrap. But if you feel you have started off, you want to start making a product, yes, then there is grant from EDI. It's a government grant. They're going to give you money. They're not going to ask you back for it. Okay, that is the safest bit. Getting a loan depends very much on the banks, and I have mostly found banks do not trust you very easily with giving loan. The trend in bank is 3 years profit and loss statement, and they give you a loan, right? Otherwise, you need to give a lot of credentials. And even after that, you won't get a loan for your company easily. Yeah.
Yeah, also adding up to this, or maybe for other 1 year, banks are a little bit hesitated to give loans. Even I have approached my bank for a kind of support, and they said very open, and they said, Rahul, this is the current situation. Maybe for 1 year, please come with us only for jewel loan, not other than anything. So we can on economic situation. Economy is also to be considered. So at this time, we have a question again from Dr. Shekhar Kapoor. So Dr. Shekhar Kapoor is again a professor at Bharatiya Skill Development University, Jaipur. He's also a resource person, and he has a question. Can you give me some 2 to 3 startup ideas? My question will be last 2 to 3 ideas. Which will be better in this pandemic situation.
No idea that would work here may work in your place, sir. The ideas that may work in your place may not work in my place. So ideas are very geography specific as we listen in market segmentation. But I can give you one example. I actually was going through companies industries that are doing very well in COVID-19 era. One industry that did extremely well is this platform that we are sitting on, Zoom. Okay. Zoom was not a well-known application before the lockdown, but after lockdown happened, we know an application like Zoom became the most popular application or most downloaded application, even surpassing WhatsApp. Imagine just during the lockdown period, it went up. So educational technologies or technologies that are helping people to work from remote places is actually, you also know that Government of India announced a 1 crore bounty for people who wish to create an application that may be as good as Zoom. Yeah. So this is one area. The second area I found was local retail network. Now, Jio is coming into this segment. Amazon is also, Flipkart is also planning to come in this segment, but I don't know how will they cover. I don't know how their business model is going to cover. But if you know, in cities, you have players like Grofers, Big Basket and all, who can get you any groceries to your doorstep, but they get it from their warehouses. Now, there was a startup in Mumbai which is called as lovelocal.in. Now, this startup was initially known as Pani was the name of the startup. Now, this startup was not at all known in Bombay. It was only based in Bombay, but since Mumbai is actually a metropolitan city with a lot of access to technology and big startups like Grofers, Big Basket, Amazon, all of them are marketplace there. This startup was not taking up, but their time came when the lockdown began and people started feeling the crunch of not receiving their orders from Big Basket because they were overly strained and they were not able to deliver orders. Love Local, Pani, which is known as Pani, became overnight successful startup because people started looking for local alternative. So what Pani does is, or Love Local does it, lovelocal.in, they do is they connect the local suppliers on an e-commerce portal and they provide them with what is available. For example, you want to buy meat. They will show you from your house in 200-meter radius how many meat shops are there, how many milk shops are there, how many grocery shops are there. And during lockdown, they also provided the information how many of them are open and how many of them are willing to do a door delivery. So this actually greatly actually was a great blessing for people in Mumbai during those during lockdown period, because Mumbai was one of the worst cities, is one of the worst cities in the world today. So so this application became the second trendiest application for a particular day in India after Zoom. So it was so widely downloaded and just in Mumbai. So startups, maybe local retail network, maybe a good idea to start up now with, okay, and especially for a city like Jaipur, which has actually both areas, right? One very well off new bustling Jaipur city and one an old Jaipur city. So maybe this may work there or not work there, I don't know. There's the third kind of industry that I have found very much increasing in this COVID-19 era was the gaming industry. Many of them who have found time and space at home, and many of young professionals who were gamers maybe in their college started taking up gaming so seriously, and gaming industries found a big surge. Ludo King, you know, one of the gaming applications, becomes the most popular game downloaded in Google Play Store. And you see suddenly that the application advertisements started coming on TV and social network sites and all, because it found so much of mileage in a very brief time. So gaming was an industry. Educational gaming technology industries actually boomed very well during this lockdown period. E-commerce portals like Amazon made a very big buck during this particular lockdown. So there are some of these industries which are, so maybe from them we can have take a lesson of maybe we can actually take these ideas, and maybe some of these ideas may work in your geographical area. I'm not very sure. But let me tell you, the buzzword now is safety. Anything that you provide, if you put the word safety there, I believe you can sell, because people are no more attracted to value of, glitter and other things. They want safety. Is it safe? Okay, all that they want is safety. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
thank you, sir. And that's a very exciting answer as well. And so hope you would also you also have this gaming AI software. Your company is all about artificial intelligence.
No.
So
We are not
now,
into artificial. We are into simple media consultancy company only.
okay.
To an extent, we are experimenting with artificial intelligence, but we have not launched any product in the same.
So in this case, like it will be one of the best startups we'll be having across in Tamilnadu.
Definitely, let's look forward to it. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Wishes for that as
Thank
well.
you so much. Thank you so much.
So any other final questions, or we'll go with the closing remarks because So that is the questions. That is the questions. And on behalf of Institution Innovation Council, MHRD Innovation Cell, by MET Engineering College, MET Business Incubation Center as a whole, we wholeheartedly thank Shri Vishal Nair for his valuable time. Like you have spent your valuable time with us.
Thank you so much.
And also this session was like really what we are very much interested. We get a lot of positive comments across your sessions, and I'm still like, what are we have? My first thought comes to mind is what kind of training is like. Let's start with Vishal sir, and that's one best possibility. Because you take everything in a very, very calm, polite, and a localized way where we could achieve globalize.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that you understand the mindset. You understand the mindset, what is very much required, and then we have to carry forward. And that's why you became a favorite for most student community across. So thank you so much, sir, for joining us for this day. Thank you so much for joining us. And also adding with the key points, we have a question from Manikandan and for there's a 1 crore funding opportunity by Ministry of Telecommunications. Not only telecommunications, like we have opportunities from Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of Commerce, Ministry of all ministries are helping in terms of fund support for potential startups. That's one best thing of Government of India is doing it all. I'm very privileged as an innovation ambassador of MHRD Innovation Cell. Very pleased to work closely with entrepreneurs, trainers like you. Special thanks from MHRD Innovation Cell.
Thank you.
Vishal, sir, thank you so much.
Thank you so
hope
much.
we will be seeing you in a very big platform very soon.
Thank you so much.
So before we close, we'll have a national anthem. Yes, and also the most anticipated thing all you need is your feedback link. I'll share it right away. As we say, most excited thing coming on your way. Before that, we'll be launching a poll as well. So I'll launch a poll. I request everyone to quickly comment your responses in this poll. So it is what the session is all about, what you had. Yeah, a lot of positive comments coming in the chat box. Very informative session, very positive session. Yes. So maybe I need a quick response from everyone so that it will be very helpful for Vishal sir as well. So it's a. So we have a lot of participants to complete this. I request the feedback link is already shared with you. That's the most anticipated thing for you. It's again shared. Thanks for joining as well. And also I request everyone to complete the poll as well. The poll will close in a couple of minutes. The poll is displayed in your screen. So request everyone to complete your poll as quick as possible. So Vishal sir have shared his email ID, also his contact number, so you can get in touch with him. As a personal note, I should say he's one of the best and down to earth, humble person where he could get social support in terms of guidance, in terms of business planning, or whatever it is. Even I am a student of him in terms of learning. So
I am also a student of yours. I've learned from you.
So it's a kind of learning.
Learning exercise. Yeah.
It's a kind of learning exercise. So I'm ending the poll here, and I'll launch the poll results now. So this is this. How far you consider entrepreneurship is going to make impact? It's a need of the hour. 31% says the need of the hour, and 76%, a big number, says Indian entrepreneurs can change the world. And so, Vishal sir, that's the feedback of your session. Indian entrepreneurs can change the world, and 3% says no support from government for entrepreneurs. And absolutely, I'm against it now. Like it's far better now. Like we are getting a lot of support, from government in terms of funding source. Even registration is made very easy. That's one big thing. If you want to register a private limited company, it's become very easy. It's everything went online. I've registered my company during this lockdown as well. And we'll make no change in economy. 3% says entrepreneurship will make no change in economy, and I'll complete again in this case. Byju's is an example.
Yeah.
Byju's is an example. So thank you so much, participants, for sharing the poll. And before we close, let's go for the national anthem.
जनगण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल बंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मागे गाहे तव जय गाथा जनगण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे
Thank you so much, Vishal sir, for joining us.
Thank you so much. Yes.
And you're free to leave now, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
So participants, I've shared you the feedback link, so you can complete the feedback link another 1 hour, 15 minutes, maybe in 1 hour, 15 minutes, we'll close the feedback link. So things are going a little bit tougher for us to keep a track on it, and we have regarding the certificates, you will be completing the feedback today, and we will take all our extra efforts to make sure that you will get your certificates in another 2 to 3 days, because like my vendor is experiencing a kind of issue with their software where they're generating certificates. It is not working for past 5 days. That's why we are unable to release the certificates of 21. We are yet to release the certificates for 21st program that we'll be releasing maybe by today or tomorrow morning. So also I will stop live streaming. So the participants who have been watching over YouTube, I'll share the feedback link here in YouTube live stream as well. You can complete your feedback. Thank you everyone. Thank you everyone for all participants who are watching it live as well. On YouTube. So I've shared the feedback link in YouTube live as well, so participants can complete your feedbacks maybe another couple of time. So hope you are receiving the message in your live chat. If yes, in the case, I request to reply yes in this YouTube live chat as well. Please give an yes that we are receiving it. So we are sharing this feedback link. So hope all participants can fill up this also. So, oh, thank you so much. If the feedback submitted, you are free to leave. We can leave the session. Thank you so much. You can leave the session. I will stay back still for any queries. It has to be sorted out. So I think only one certificate has to be released from our side for most of the programs we have contacted. So all the certificates will be like 21st program is vouching agile career. That's the one certificate which is pending, and that we'll be releasing it by 21st of by maybe by today or tomorrow. I'm sorry, by today or tomorrow we will release it. And for today's certificate, kindly bear with us for another 2 days, 2 to 3 days, 3 days a maximum, so that we will release it. So once again, thank you so much for joining us. So I'll share my contact here as well, so that if you have any queries, you can reach to me regarding certificate issue. And we are stopping the live stream. Thank you for all these participants who are watching live in YouTube. Thank you so much. We are stopping the live stream.